You don't need another business book. And today we're going to prove this theory because I'm going to show you how you can take the latest hot BookTok read, Quicksilver by Callie Hart, and turn it into your best business reflection tool like ever. So I coach a lot of business owners every week. I've been doing it for years, and I have discovered that lately a lot of people have been really stuck in these feedback loops from thought leadership nonfiction books. And here's my advice for you. Those people who write those books for you, they want you to think of them as the ultimate resource for whatever topic they specialize in. They want you to follow their advice and do it the way they think you should do it. But my feeling for you as a coach is that you are your own thought leader. You need to be the best thought leader for your own business. If somebody else always has to give you the information, you will always feel like you're a quarter short of a dollar or a day late. It's always going to feel like you need an answer from some information source outside of you. And the truth is, here at Sensible Woo, we are both sensible and woo. To tap into that intuitive knowing that you have as a business owner, it comes down to training your thoughts, training your emotions, training your mindset into believing and working with the inner knowing that you actually have. And I know as a librarian by trade that reading fiction is the best way to do this. When you have somebody else's voice inside your head about a business topic, you are always going to reference that voice. Here's a great example. How many times have you or someone in your business circles constantly referenced, what's your big why? And then they immediately reference Simon Sinek. Now, I love Simon Sinek. I think he's amazing. But if you don't understand what it feels like to have a big why, it doesn't matter how many great TED Talks Simon Sinek gives you or how many great books he writes. You will always feel like you are behind the curve. So the way to get out of that is by reading fiction. And there is this great thing happening in our online business community right now where people are starting to gravitate towards each other because they have a love of a certain genre of fiction. I happen to have a book club here in Vancouver, Washington. We call ourselves the Feral Book Club because we love reading romance fantasy. And if this is the first time you're joining me on any kind of book-related video here, I have this video tucked within a playlist, and you can go and see a whole bunch of different chats that I've had here on my YouTube channel all about the power of romance fiction specifically for business. It's a fascinating business story in and of itself. It's a great examination of business practices for women in business especially. And last but not least, it's fun. It's super fun. It's also really low pressure and it gives your brain a chance to relax. We've all been under so much stress in the last few years. You have your goals, you have your desires, and you're navigating all of the economic shifts that are going around. So why not make it a little bit easier for you? And today I'm going to introduce you to some reflection questions for a book titled Quicksilver by an author named Callie Hart. Now, Callie Hart normally writes dark romance, and she wrote this fantasy series really as a way to help her kind of recover from a little bit of writer's burnout. And I love that story behind it because she self-published and then it took off like wildfire. There was a bidding war in the publishing world over the rights to her book. She has a mainstream publisher now. The first book is about to get re-released in 2025 under the mainstream publisher's imprint. And then the second book, which was supposed to release in October of this year of 2024, is now going to release about a year from now. Who wouldn't want a business story like that? The story behind the story is almost as good as the story itself. So this video is not the first time that I've done reflection questions based on pieces of fiction. I have a really long video based on when the Feral Book Club first took off, and I'll have a link to that below this video in the show notes, so you can go check that out. It has a ton of reflection questions based off of our initial monster read. We read the entire 5-part ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas, and we also read Fourth Wing, the first 2 books. The third one's coming out in January. There will probably be more reflection come January for that too. But all of us in our book club, we really, really enjoyed Quicksilver. It had a pacing to it. It had great banter. We loved the primary as well as the secondary characters. We loved that the characters were a little older than some of these other romance series where the main character, especially the female character, is really, really young. And as a book club comprised of 30 and 40 something women who are all entrepreneurs, we were kind of itching to read a book where they're just like a little bit more mature. And this definitely started to hit that mark a little bit more. Okay, just like last time, I've got the questions here on my phone. I'm going to read them to you. All right. So Quicksilver is a book that clocks in at 624 pages. So in the grand scheme of fantasy writing, that's actually not that many pages. And I will tell you, those pages whip by very quickly. I don't think it reads as fast as the Empyrean series, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Her writing tends to move at a really fast pace, but it's at a pretty good mile per hour action pace to it. Definitely faster than Sarah J. Maas, which I personally really appreciated. So while we're all reading, we have a private texting thread amongst our now 6 members. We've doubled in size. We were 3 and now we're 6. And we noticed that female main characters seem to really have a stick up their ass in a lot of these books. And it was annoying a couple of our readers in the Feral Book Club. And they were like, how come these side characters get to be so funny? And why is a female character so serious? And she's always just so mad and she's so angry. And we had a little mini discussion about this, that female main characters don't really get the luxury in terms of story structure and in terms of moving the plot along. One of our book club members said it like this. She said, the FMC does not have the luxury of being confidently funny like male main characters. And you can even look to movies. She referenced movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, for example. And I thought that was a really, really excellent point. So the question to reflect on here is, how does this frustration of not having the luxury of being, say, confidently funny or whatever the other attribute is that you wish you could have in your business, how does that frustration show up in your own business and branding? And then what would you do to rewrite this character development problem in your own business? Now, I always say you should be the main character in everything that you do. And it first begs the question, are you acting like the main character in your business? And if you're not, that's the first thing you need to solve. And then the next thing is, if you're having this frustration problem, how would you rewrite your character development? Do you need to, say, talk with your therapist about some emotional needs that are holding you back from showing up the way you really want to in the world? I've seen that happening a lot this year. I have so many amazing clients, and they will tell me about what they are doing with their therapist so that they know what they're working on in their business space as opposed to true therapy space. And those two things working together produces amazing results. And it's what produces that authenticity quotient that so many people are looking for. I would say if it turns out that the thing that makes you super unique and stands out is not terribly flashy, then it's not terribly flashy. Who says it has to be? Maybe you appreciate your side characters like Carrion in this story being the comedic relief so that you have room to be serious. And if you don't have that set up in your business life, it's a really good sign that you need some support somewhere from a Carrion type character who will bring in that humor for you to give you the relief so that you can be as serious as you need, just like Sarah's fame. One of the next things that we have discovered in the Feral Book Club is how much we all love our secondary and tertiary characters, as well as really, really good banter. So here's your business reflection question on banter. Why does banter matter so much? Are you getting enough of it in your business journey? So when you read a piece of fiction and you're like, oh, I just love the way Carrion is so funny and he banters around and he's hilarious. All of us love the part where he came out. There's a big battle scene and he like napped through the whole thing. And he shows up with like a house plant. He's carrying a house plant. And we just thought like that is so funny. That banter really helps add a counterbalance to the fictional story, which makes the story tolerable when things get really, really serious. You need comic relief. You'll see this in TV shows, you'll see it in movies, and you need a little bit of a break somewhere. And if in your business it has been all serious all the time and you're like, why am I burning out? I would wager that there's not enough banter in your business. And it's like, well, where are you going to get that from? It's probably a sign that there are people that you are in need of in your business space and you don't have access to them, or you have not included them. Or if you are looking for help, say a virtual assistant or somebody to do some other kind of contract work, or maybe genuinely a full-time employee to do work with you, the ability to make you laugh, the ability to have some banter, the ability for somebody not to be so serious all the time might be a winning factor on who you choose to work with. And these qualities come out in the fiction that you read. You're not going to find it in your business book. Your business book is going to be like, here's my Nobel winning idea, and I'm going to prove to you why it's so important. And then they're just going to talk at you instead of including you. And the fictional story is including you, and you get a chance to reflect on what is it that you need. And this banter question is such a good one for business. Another of our really big discussion items in the Feral Book Club has been the nature of consent. So these are spicy books, and when the characters get into their sexy time, it's very reassuring to me that in this modern age, so many of these books really get into matters of consent, and it's written out on the page and it's modeled, and I think it's really beautiful. But this book had one instance where consent was not asked for on one very, very specific sexy time action, and all of us really noticed it because consent was everywhere else. And one of the things that came up in our business discussion as a result was on the topic of consent. Where does the entrepreneurship world forget about consent? And how can we make sure it's asked for the first time and checked in on regularly? And so you can ask yourself, if you've been kind of reeling from, maybe some toxic coaching experiences that you've had. I've heard of way too many that have gone on since COVID, unfortunately. Or if you have felt really pressured to make any kind of investment decision when it comes to your business, whether it be a tool like a piece of software or it's a coaching package or something of that nature. And there's probably something with consent going on there that needs a little bit of examination. I've also seen a lot of folks going through an evolution in their community spaces this year in 2024. And honestly, I'm so here for it. It is time. There are some really toxic places and spaces where people are thinking they're losing out if they don't maintain their membership there. And the truth is you can leave. You can leave. And if you give yourself a chance to think about, where has my consent been asked the first time, not later, but was it asked at the beginning? And how is that checked in on regularly? And if you notice that you're really not getting checked in on, they're really not caring about how you feel or what your needs are, that's a really big red flag. It's just like dating. It's just like romance novels, right? It's a really big red flag that is not a good character. That is not a good place. That's not a good world. And your job then becomes very clear. What's my exit strategy? Where am I going next? What am I going to do? How much time do I need to give myself to kind of recuperate and recover from that? Do I need to talk to other people who've gone through something similar? And you can start to dig into these issues. But this nature of consent is a really big one. It shows up big time in romance novels, modern romance novels. And then when you pick up other romance genre related novels, especially dark romance, you can start to ask yourself, like, do those fictional actions align with my values? Is that really what I want to consume? Because if you're consuming that, then you can ask yourself, where else in my business materials am I consuming things that turns out aren't very healthy and they're not really productive? And this relationship can start to show up by you being able to incorporate yourself into the journey in the story. All right, our last question for Quicksilver, because the ACOTAR and Fourth Wing questions were so many. We didn't have that many more questions for Quicksilver to add. But the last one was that fantasy is about the impossible becoming possible. What do you wish you could transform from impossible to possible in your business right now? There is this whole alchemist thing that goes on in Quicksilver. So it's all like literally the transmutation of materials from one thing to another. In our fantasy books, we see that a lot. We see that sort of theme show up a lot. And it really begs the question, if you're like, oh, just love it when the things transform. Just love it when it's like magic and it just happens. It's like, how do you bring that into your business? What do you need to do to have that be present in your everyday working life? One of the things that I really loved about Quicksilver is that the main character, Saris, she definitely does not do any of this alone. She is a bit of a lone wolf in her personality, and she would kind of like to, but by the time she gets to the end, her whole character development realizes she is an integral part to all of this, but she can't do it alone. And the whole group of characters together, this merry band of warriors, they also discover they can't do things alone. Most of them already know it, and they make it really clear that you can't do things alone. And the people who do try to do things alone, they get punished by the world in really dramatic ways. And I think this is actually really true of business as well. So you can ask yourself, like, who do I need on my warrior team in order to make the impossible possible? And what is it? Can I say it out loud? Because in this book, the main male character says exactly the impossible and what he wants to make possible. And he says it out loud. Everyone else is kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can say those things. And he actually says it. He's not afraid to do it. And I would challenge you to be a little bit more like Kingfisher. Can you use your words? Can you say clearly what you want to make from impossible to possible? Now you can build an actual business strategy and you can start working on it. All right, that's it. Super short and easy this week. This book was really fun. It came at a time in my life when I really needed just a nice, fun, comforting read, and I definitely got that. It has lots of chili pepper spice in it. It was so good. I personally loved it. I felt like it makes Rhysand from the ACOTAR series, who so many people love. He's like super vanilla compared to Kingfisher. Thank God. Have fun reading your fiction. I will be back in here on my channel at some point in the future with more reflection questions when our book club gets to another book that really has a major impact again. And in the meantime, you can subscribe for email updates from me where I talk about things like this and more. And you get a free tarot and Akashic Records reading for your business every single week. It only comes out through email, not here on YouTube, not on social media. And if you want that, the link is below this video in the show notes, and I will see you in your inbox. Have a wonderful witchy fall season.